57 trucks, engines roaring, parked in a long line at Burkina Faso's border. They weren't small carriers. These were industrial giants, loaded to the brim, trying to slip past unnoticed. But Captain Ibrahim Traoré wasn't fooled. He saw through the papers, he saw through the excuses, and he gave the order: stop them, search them. In seconds, soldiers surrounded the convoy. The border went silent. The drivers sat frozen. And the big question erupted. What were they carrying? The answer didn't just surprise people. It shook the entire nation and sent shockwaves around the world. Because what those trucks held wasn't ordinary cargo. It was a symbol of how Africa's wealth has been drained for decades, and how Traoré decided enough was enough. Suspicion at the border Burkina Faso has seen its fair share of smuggling. From gold dust hidden in sacks of grain to foreign fuel sneaked through back roads, nothing is new. But this, 57 heavy trucks all moving together like a secret convoy, that was no ordinary border traffic. The scene immediately raised eyebrows. Local traders rarely move in such massive numbers, and if they do, they always declare their cargo. But these trucks were different. Their paperwork looked too clean, too perfect, as if someone had carefully staged the details. Traoré's administration has been on edge for months, tightening security against exploitation by foreign powers. He knew what was at stake, not just the protection of resources, but the sovereignty of an entire nation. Allowing these trucks to pass without inspection would have been an open invitation to looters. So he made a decisive call. Stop them. Check everything. Nothing moves until we know the truth. This wasn't merely a checkpoint anymore. It was a test of Burkina Faso's independence. Gold or weapons. The moment the convoy was halted, rumors exploded across the region. Some voices claimed the trucks were filled with illegally mined gold, hidden away to be smuggled across the border, destined for foreign banks while Burkina Faso's people remained poor. If true, it meant millions of dollars in national wealth slipping through the cracks. Others whispered about something far more sinister: weapons, crates of guns, ammunition, and explosives being funneled into the country to fuel chaos. If that rumor was real, it meant a deliberate attempt to destabilize Traoré's government, perhaps even by forces outside Africa who couldn't stand a strong, independent Burkina Faso. Either way, the implications were explosive. Gold meant theft of the nation's future. Weapons meant sabotage of its present. And both possibilities proved one thing clearly: Traoré's instincts had been right. By now, the tension at the border was unbearable. Soldiers were ready. The world was watching. And everyone wanted to know what lay hidden inside those 57 trucks. Why Traoré took the risk stopping such a massive convoy wasn't just bold, it was dangerous beyond measure. 57 trucks don't move without powerful interests backing them. Everyone knew this wasn't some small smuggling gang. What if powerful foreign corporations were behind it? What if foreign governments were quietly pulling the strings? By blocking the trucks, Captain Traoré was taking on forces far larger than himself. But he drew a line in the sand and made his message clear. Burkina Faso is not your playground. He was ready to risk confrontation, even isolation, if that's what it took to protect his people. This wasn't about one night at the border. This was about rewriting the future of his country, the hidden war for resources. Every year, Burkina Faso produces more than 100 tons of gold. That makes it one of Africa's biggest gold producers. Yet for decades, where has that wealth gone? Not into the hands of the people, not into schools, roads, or hospitals. Instead, much of it has vanished across borders in secret convoys, enriching foreign companies and shadowy elites. Billions in stolen gold leave the country, while ordinary Burkinabe citizens remain in poverty. The convoy of 57 trucks was not just a shipment, it was a symbol of the hidden war for resources, a war where outsiders grow rich while locals remain poor. By blocking the trucks, Traoré wasn't just seizing cargo. He was fighting for ownership of Burkina Faso's future. Ordinary people, extraordinary anger. When the news spread across Burkina Faso, the reaction was electric. For years, people had seen their land stripped of wealth while their families struggled. They had watched their resources leave the country, while schools lacked chalk, hospitals lacked medicine, and young people lacked jobs. Now, for the first time, someone had the courage to stop it. Someone dared to stand up against the endless looting. The 57 trucks instantly became more than vehicles. They became a symbol of how much had been stolen, a symbol of futures lost, but also a symbol of hope, because this time there was resistance. This time, Burkina Faso was fighting back. The gold mafia across Africa, a shadowy network known as the Gold Mafia, controls billions in stolen resources. They use shell companies, private planes, and hidden convoys to move gold from mines straight into the hands of international elites. It is an economy larger than many African governments themselves. For years they operated in silence. But when Traoré blocked those 57 trucks, he wasn't just interfering with smugglers, he was striking at the heart of the gold mafia's business model. He was exposing an underground empire that thrives on corruption and secrecy. And by doing so, he placed himself directly in their crosshairs. Because in Africa, when you stand in the way of stolen wealth, you're not just challenging criminals, you're challenging a global system. The French connection, as whispers spread about. The trucks, one name kept returning: France. Burkina Faso's former colonial master has long been accused of exploiting Africa's resources, often through complex networks of corporations and middlemen. Whether or not these particular trucks were linked to French companies, the symbolism was undeniable. By blocking them, Traoré was defying the old empire itself. He was sending a message not only to France, but to the entire world. The era of colonial plunder is over. For decades, France has been accused of draining Africa's gold and oil while keeping nations dependent and weak. Traoré's defiance was a direct challenge to that history. In that moment, the 57 trucks weren't just cargo. They were a confrontation with centuries of exploitation. Oil in the shadows, while gold grabbed the headlines, there was another, even more strategic layer. To the convoy, some intelligence reports indicated that these trucks weren't carrying only gold. Hidden beneath tarps, in unassuming crates and barrels, were samples of oil, drilling equipment, and highly sensitive geological data. Burkina Faso may not be known globally for oil yet, but its reserves have long been rumored, and recent surveys confirmed their existence. Foreign powers have been quietly monitoring these untapped reserves, eyeing the possibility of controlling a new energy hub in West Africa. And these trucks? They could have contained key evidence, maps, samples, and technology meant to give outsiders first access to what belongs to Burkina Faso. For Traoré, allowing them through would have been catastrophic. It wasn't just a matter of smuggling, it was a matter of national security. Whoever controlled the oil could dictate future development, influence politics, and even manipulate local markets. By stopping the convoy, Traoré was striking a bold statement. Burkina Faso's resources will serve its people first. He wasn't just defending gold, he was defending the nation's energy independence, and with it, the country's sovereignty and future prosperity. The audacity of the act sent shockwaves across the region. Neighboring countries and analysts took notice. A landlocked African nation was standing up not just against illegal trade, but against centuries of resource exploitation. This moment wasn't just about trucks. It was about the power to rewrite Africa's economic future. A new Pan-African symbol. The moment Traoré blocked those trucks, his action resonated far beyond Burkina Faso. Across Mali, Niger, Senegal, and other African nations, citizens and local leaders took note. For decades, the continent had watched. leaders bow under foreign pressure, surrendering resources quietly while people suffered at home. Now here was a leader saying clearly, boldly, and publicly, "Enough is enough." Traoré instantly became more than a political figure. He became a symbol. To the youth, he was a lion roaring for independence. To historians, he was a modern echo of Thomas Sankara, a reminder that African nations could reclaim control over their wealth. Social media platforms erupted. Videos of the border blockade went viral, with hashtags celebrating sovereignty, independence, and a Pan-African revival. Across African capitals, commentators debated the implications. Some called it dangerous, others called it courageous. But the message was clear. One man's defiance had reignited a conversation about self-determination, economic freedom, and continental unity. The symbolism was so powerful that ordinary citizens began using the convoy incident as a rallying point. In markets, schools, and city squares, murals were painted. T-shirts bore Traoré's image. Speeches and debates referenced his bold decision. For the first time in decades, Africa wasn't just watching history, it was participating in it. Traoré's move sent a message to the world. African nations can control their own destiny. And for many across the continent, that message was electric. It wasn't just gold or oil that was at stake. It was pride, dignity, and the belief that Africa can rise on its own terms. The echo of Libya history casts a long shadow over Africa. Leaders who dared to challenge Western dominance have often paid a high price. Muammar Gaddafi, once Libya's revolutionary force for an independent African vision, dreamed of freeing the continent from exploitation. He tried to create a financial system that would allow African nations to trade freely without Western interference. But the West reacted ruthlessly. Gaddafi's boldness was met with embargoes, propaganda, and ultimately violent overthrow. His fall became a cautionary tale whispered across the continent. Defy, and you risk everything. Traoré is fully aware of this history. He knows that standing up to foreign powers is not just political, it is existential. Every move, every decision carries enormous stakes. Yet despite the risks, he refuses to bow. By stopping those 57 trucks, Traoré signals that Burkina Faso will not follow the path of Gaddafi's fate. He is daring to write a different story, one of independence, sovereignty, and African self-determination. In the eyes of Africans watching closely, Traoré's act is nothing short of heroic. He embodies the courage to defy centuries of exploitation while learning from the tragedies of the past. This isn't just a checkpoint incident, it's a battle in the ongoing struggle for Africa's freedom. Suspense builds. What was inside? The world waited, holding its breath. 57 trucks stopped at the border, engines silent, their contents unknown. Speculation spread like wildfire. Were the trucks filled with gold bars neatly stacked under innocent-looking sacks of grain? That alone could represent millions in stolen national wealth. Or perhaps they carried highly classified geological maps, drilling data, and specialized equipment, evidence of Burkina Faso's untapped oil and energy potential, coveted by foreign powers for decades, and some whispered darker possibilities: weapons, small arms, ammunition, or even tools meant to destabilize the country. Each scenario carried dangerous consequences. A gold shipment would highlight decades of exploitation. Oil equipment would threaten global interests seeking control. Weapons would signal a direct attack on national security. The silence from foreign governments only intensified the mystery. No denials, no explanations, just quiet, as if to let the suspense grow. For Traoré and his administration, this was more than just inspecting cargo. It was a test of courage, strategy, and leadership. Every crate opened could reveal alliances, threats, and hidden agendas that would shape the future of Burkina Faso. As soldiers lifted the first tarps, cameras rolled, journalists scribbled, and citizens held their collective breath. The nation, and indeed the world, waited for the revelation. The truth behind those 57 trucks had the power to shock, expose, and transform. The inspections, border guards opened the first few trucks. The cargo looked ordinary, but beneath layers of cover, they found suspicious materials, documents, equipment, minerals packed for export. The deeper they looked, the more the truth unfolded. The documents that changed. Everything. Hidden inside crates were confidential files, shipping manifests with false company names, export licenses signed by foreign officials. This wasn't smuggling. By chance, it was an organized system. Corporate interests exposed Traoré's government traced the documents back to multinational corporations. These companies claimed to invest in Burkina Faso. In reality, they were bleeding it dry. The 57 trucks were proof of systemic theft. The Western silence. When Traoré stopped the 57 trucks at the border, the world expected an immediate response from Western powers. But none came. No denials, no press releases, no explanations, only silence. And in geopolitics, silence often speaks louder than words. Analysts and journalists scrambled to interpret the quiet. Was it shock? Embarrassment? Or a calculated move to avoid escalating tensions publicly? Some insiders whispered that the halted convoy had exposed operations that Western governments would rather keep hidden. Illegal dealings, smuggling networks, or attempts to secure strategic resources without transparency. This silence had an almost tangible weight. Every pause on the world stage amplified Traoré's action. The block trucks weren't just an administrative checkpoint anymore. They had become a symbol of defiance. Every hour that passed without a statement was a victory for Burkina Faso's sovereignty. Meanwhile, the African continent watched intently. Citizens, media outlets, and even neighboring governments saw that the most powerful nations could be taken aback by one bold leader. Traoré had not just stopped a convoy, he had sent a ripple through global power structures. In this silence, a message resounded. Burkina Faso was no longer willing to play by the old rules, and the world had no choice but to notice. The African. Awakening across Africa, news outlets praised Traoré. Social media exploded with hashtags. Burkina Faso became the center of a new Pan-African awakening. If 57 trucks could be stopped, what else could be reclaimed? The people celebrate. In Ouagadougou, the streets erupted with joy. The moment news spread that Traoré had stopped the 57 trucks, citizens poured out of their homes, spilling into boulevards and markets. Music, drums, and chanting filled the air as men, women, and children waved flags and banners, proudly declaring, "Our gold belongs to us." The celebrations weren't just spontaneous. They were years in the making. Generations had watched. As foreign powers quietly extracted Burkina Faso's wealth while locals struggled with broken schools, empty hospitals, and limited opportunities. Now, for the first time in decades, hope was tangible. Citizens saw that their resources could stay in their hands, that their labor could directly benefit their families and communities. In neighborhoods across the city, people danced, hugged, strangers, and sang songs praising Traoré. Murals appeared almost overnight, depicting him as a lion, a guardian of the nation's wealth. Social media exploded as young Africans shared videos and photos, creating a wave of pride and unity that extended far beyond Burkina Faso's borders. This wasn't just a moment of celebration, it was a declaration. The people were sending a message. We are watching. We care. Our country belongs to us. Traoré's courage had sparked not just political resistance, but a cultural awakening. And in that joy, the citizens realized something powerful. Their voices, combined with their leader's bold action, could finally reclaim the dignity that had been stripped away for too long. Fear of retaliation, But celebration came with fear. If Traoré could block 57 trucks, he could also make powerful enemies, and those enemies never forgive. The shadow of Coos Africa's history is full of leaders who resisted exploitation only to be overthrown. Would Traoré face the same fate, or could he survive where others fell? The Global South watches from Latin America to Asia, leaders took note. Burkina Faso's defiance was part of a bigger trend, the rise of the Global South rejecting Western dominance. A message to the world: by stopping the 57 trucks, Traoré was doing more than enforcing border control. He was making a bold declaration on the global stage. The message was unmistakable. Burkina Faso's wealth would no longer be plundered without accountability. Gold, oil, and other vital resources belong first to the people who live on the land, not to foreign corporations or governments seeking easy profits. News outlets around the world scrambled to report on the incident. Headlines ranged from admiration to alarm. African leader stands up to foreign interests, and Burkina Faso challenges global powers. Analysts dissected every detail, trying to understand the implications of this defiance. Traoré's actions weren't just local, they had the potential to alter the balance of power in West Africa and beyond. The symbolism was clear. For decades, African nations had been pressured into unfair deals, forced loans, and exploitative trade agreements. Traoré's move shattered that pattern. It signaled that one determined nation could reclaim control, protect its citizens, and challenge centuries of economic exploitation. Even beyond Africa, political observers began to take notice. If a small landlocked country like Burkina Faso could assert its sovereignty so decisively, what would stop other nations from following suit? Traoré had sent a ripple across the global order, reminding the world that African leadership could be bold, strategic, and unyielding. This was more than a checkpoint or a stopped convoy. It was a statement of independence, a warning to foreign powers, and a beacon of hope for African nations everywhere. For Traoré and his people, the message was simple but powerful. We will protect what is ours, and we will no longer bow to external pressure. The gold question. The moment those 57 trucks were halted, one question dominated conversations across the country and around the world. How much gold was really inside? Estimates began to circulate immediately. Some suggested hundreds of millions of dollars worth of gold, a staggering sum for a nation whose annual GDP pales in comparison. For ordinary citizens, the scale of the potential loss was shocking. This wasn't just a shipment, it was a fortune that could have funded schools, hospitals, infrastructure, and local businesses for decades. Economists and analysts weighed in. If all that gold had left Burkina Faso, it would have enriched foreign corporations and governments while leaving local communities to struggle. By stopping the trucks, Traoré prevented a massive transfer of wealth and potentially changed the nation's economic trajectory overnight. The suspense only grew as officials began inspecting the cargo. Each crate revealed not only its contents, but the hidden networks that had attempted to bypass state oversight. The scale of the operation suggested deep, organized efforts to extract resources illegally. Traoré's intervention wasn't just bold, it was historic. For the people of Burkina Faso, the halted convoy became more than a headline. It became a symbol of justice, sovereignty, and the possibility that their nation's wealth could finally serve its citizens first. Across social media, debates flared. Headlines questioned the value, experts speculated on its impact, and citizens shared hope that this moment marked the beginning of a new era. In the end, the gold question was more than a number. It was a reflection of centuries of exploitation, and a reminder that the power to change the country's destiny lay in the hands of its leaders and its people. Oil dreams, but gold was just one piece. With oil reserves waiting underground, Burkina Faso could soon become an energy hub. The trucks were a warning. Others already know this, and they want it first. The Western backlash soon after, whispers of sanctions and diplomatic pressure began. Western powers couldn't afford to lose their grip, but the more they threatened, the more the people rallied behind Traoré. Lessons from history, from Congo's Patrice Lumumba to Libya's Gaddafi, history shows what happens to leaders who resist. But Traoré seems to believe that times have changed. This time, Africa is united. The trucks as a symbol. The 57 trucks became more than vehicles. They became a symbol of resistance, a reminder that Africa's wealth has been stolen for centuries. But the tide may be turning. The future of Burkina Faso. With the stolen resources exposed, Burkina Faso faces a choice. Will it finally invest in its own people, schools, hospitals, roads, or will powerful outsiders still find a way to steal the future? A turning point for Africa. What happened at that border wasn't just about one nation. It was about all of Africa. If Traoré succeeds, others will follow. If he fails, the dream of independence takes another blow. The world may have asked a simple question. What were those 57 trucks carrying? But the deeper truth is far more important. Those trucks represented centuries of stolen wealth, stolen futures, and stolen dignity. They symbolized the exploitation that has left communities impoverished while resources flowed into foreign hands. By blocking them, Traoré didn't just stop cargo, he sent a message across Africa and the world: enough is enough. For the first time in decades, citizens saw that their resources, their labor, and their nation's destiny could remain in their own hands. It was a moment of courage, of defiance, and of hope. This act isn't just about one leader or one nation. It's about the possibility of a new Africa, one that stands tall, protects its wealth, and claims its future. If you believe in these stories, in the courage of leaders who dare to defy, and in the power of nations to reclaim their independence, then make sure to like this video, subscribe, and hit the bell.